Browns continue preparations for the Patriots on Sunday at FirstEnergy Stadium, and today it was coordinator day, which of course, Mary Kay, meant we heard from Joe Woods, the embattled Browns defensive coordinator, trying to get this run game figured out, trying to get this defense figured out. He mentioned right off the top, can you guys see my eyes? A guy that has been burning the midnight oil trying to get this thing right.
That's right. And, we pulled no punches with him. We asked him everything, including, here you are on the hot seat again, like you were last year. He didn't avoid that. He said that he's trying to block that noise out. He has seen what it's done to other people that he knows, other colleagues of his, when they let that in and they absorb that. So he's trying not to listen to the noise and just do his job. And it turned around last year. They ended up as a top 5 defense. So he's hoping for the same thing this year.
Well, and Ashley, it turned around after that New England game last year. They lost that game 45-7. Now, obviously, he's got to turn it around for this New England game, but we have seen this happen before, as Mary Kay mentioned.
Right, that's the kind of ideal scenario. Folks may remember that New England game as the game Myles Garrett came out afterwards in his post-game press conference and kind of criticized Joe Woods, said the Browns didn't make adjustments. But I think what's interesting to hear from Joe Woods is I wonder if just his defensive plan overall, if guys have been having a hard time grasping it, because he's constantly talking about thinning things out. He said that they've been doing that. They're going to do it some more. So I think it's about simplifying it for guys who, the reality is they've been together now another year, but there still are some relatively young players on this defense.
Yeah, Mary Kay, one of the things he mentioned is the menu, right? Coming up with a menu that can stop what they need to stop, but also can allow guys to play fast and not overthink things, get in those run fits, all of that stuff.
Yeah, I think that has something to do with it. I really do. I mean, he made a highlight reel of all of their missed tackles for this whole entire season. They watched it today, actually, and he feels like they got it, like they understood it. But I also have to think that there's something to be said for the fact that Myles, Jadeveon Clowney, and Taven Bryan all sat out the Falcons game. When they came back last week against the Chargers, they were not themselves. Anthony Walker Jr. has been out. Denzel Ward's out now. I just don't think there's any continuity on the defense.
Yeah, and actually that's disappointing because that was the side of the ball where it was kind of like run it back.
Yeah, and we basically came into this season, I think everyone, including the players out on the field, kind of anticipated that this defense would carry a huge chunk of the load until Deshaun Watson comes back following this 11-game suspension. And it just hasn't happened. We haven't seen them fully gel. It doesn't look like they've, come anywhere near to what their ceiling is going to be. And I do think, like Mary Kay said, the absences, and throughout training camp, those absences were there as well, have a lot to do with it. I think it's just really hard for them to gel as a unit right now.
Well, a couple things we have to keep an eye on. Speaking of absences, Denzel Ward was not on the practice field today, so he remains in the concussion protocol. This late in the week, Mary Kay, that doesn't bode well for him getting onto the football field. Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney also did not practice today. We spotted Clowney walking out after warm-ups. Maybe just a rest day for Myles. We'll find out a little more later, but just keeping an eye on some of those guys.
Yeah, maybe a little surprising that Myles wasn't out there today, but I'm guessing for him it's probably a day of rest, still rebounding from that accident of his. Maybe the same thing for Jadeveon, although he's a little bit banged up. And Denzel, as you mentioned, at this point, I highly doubt he'll play the game with that concussion.
And Ashley, the other guy we're keeping an eye on, of course, is Deion Jones, kind of just day to day as they try to get him ramped up.
Yeah, it seems like no one's willing to rule him out. Of course, the Browns never, I think, like to rule guys out early in the week. But like we said yesterday, he just seems like a guy who's going to kind of be ready if they need him to be ready. And he seems like, he said he's staying dangerous was the great quote yesterday, that he stayed dangerous throughout this whole time that he's been on IR. So I think that's going to be a guy who's going to be ready to go if they need him.
Okay, well, whatever happens between now and that game on Sunday, we'll have it all covered at cleveland.com/Browns.